I just had a great experience. I just talked to Islam. Now, I feel like I know Islam, but you know that works in this community? You're doing the same thing, you're around each other, you're talking about each other, but then when you think about it, you go, yeah, I'm not sure that we've ever officially met. Okay. So, in Islam is interesting. And tell me if you would agree with this. My sense of Islam. So, supremely confident while remaining likably humble. And you can't always do that, right? I mean, there's some environment involved there. Personalize it, but my own story. When I was coming up with Team Quest, like, you might be, and this doesn't have to be me. This could be Evan or Dan or Matt or Randy or Lieben or Eddie or Nate. I mean, I could just keep playing that game. You're getting ready to fight for a world championship. The whole world is convinced that it is down to you and one other guy. But you are not sure that you're going to be the toughest guy in the room at 3 o'clock. Like, it's one of those interesting spots. Daniel Cormier. When I was talking with Islam, it was Daniel and I were interviewing him. But that would be another great example. You know, Daniel has always remained so playful, but it's a similar spot where he could be world champion, and no matter how bad he was, no matter how tough he was or well paid or filling up buildings he was, Kane was in the room every day. And I'm not to say that Kane could go beat up Daniel. What I'm saying is that at least keep you honest. Can we agree on that? That'll at least be so you got to focus and narrow it. And that is a very interesting concept. It's a very interesting I've seen people do this coming from a wrestling background. Like, you've got your teammate and you've got to prepare with them. You got to work out and prepare with that guy. However, at some point, you and that guy are going to shake hands and compete for the varsity spot. So it's always a tough dynamic. There is never, ever not a game played to some degree by both guys, and they can't help it. And the ones that choose to play a game of, I am here to be world champion, and I can't be the world champion if I can't be the best guy in this practice room. And they go out and give it their all. Those are the guys that win the day. But it's very uncommon to come to that mentality. It would separate you from an already elite pack. And when you have somebody like Islam, who every day is going to go and see Khabib, right? I mean, it's one of those things. And by the way, Islam could have passed him by now. He certainly will pass him, right? The younger guy that's going twice a day every day versus the guy that's coming in more of a coaching role. But I don't know if it's happened yet. They would know, and only they would know. And when that situation arises, for me at least, it's fascinating. John Smith was the Olympic champion at 88 and 92, and anyone that was around to tell the story, and I do mean unanimously, say that he could have won it in 96 and again in 2000. But he was now coaching the team as opposed to participating on the team. Chael Sonnen is in that spot right now. The best guys on down will stand back and tell you, we still can't beat him. Just one of those interesting things. I couldn't relate. I mean, I could not relate. Like, if I had got to that level where I could beat everybody in the world, I'm quite sure, you would never know until you're in that spot, but I'm quite sure I would have stayed. I would have kept beating everybody in the world. I would have had those experiences. I would have had those training camps, those weight cuts, those travels, those walks, those cage doors shutting. But look at a guy like Jon Jones. Jon Jones gave a world title back. When I worked my entire life tirelessly, I didn't have girlfriends, and I go to dances and parties. I mean, right there's these things, which you're focused on one thing. He gave it away. He had so much success, he gave it back. Could you imagine? It's an interesting spot. And I asked Islam a question. I asked him about that, for one. And those guys have a culture. They claim, I don't know their finances, but they claim that it doesn't matter who's making what. If you're the guy on the team that hasn't even broken into a major promotion yet, you're a dream of fight, but you're in the room every day. Or you're the champion getting pay-per-view points and millions of dollars from sponsors. It's all the same. And I don't fully know what that means. Does that mean there's like one account and everybody gets a draw from? I don't know. But I can tell you the way it was presented. Yeah. It's like there's one account. They will all eat the same foods. They will all stay in the same place. They go to the closet, share a guy's clothing. What an amazing thing. I mean, that really is an interesting thing when you understand they came from a village in Russia in a town called Dagestan. And Dagestan is for sure a region, but it's not much above what you would consider village. And there was something crazy one time. I was in a sauna, and there was some guy in there, this guy, and he used to wear these funny hats. And his name was Khabib Nurmagomedov. He was very new in the UFC, and I wasn't even visiting with him. I was in the sauna, he was in the sauna, but this Khabib was telling someone the story. I'm changing these numbers, I admit that, but it was like Khabib said, there is 2,400 people in my village. 18 are Olympic gold medalists. It was something like that. And I remember I can't even imagine. I don't know what that would be like. To grow up expecting to be Olympic champion, assuming that you would be Olympic champion. The farthest I got on that, of just assuming, not knowing, being naive, but it was that you were positive, is that I would get a scholarship in wrestling. I remember that very much. I remember I was talking to the vice principal, and he was going over there's something called finals, and I'm explaining to him that I don't like finals. I don't like the finals process. I don't think that it should all come down to this one test. And he's sitting back, and he's explaining to me, it has nothing to do with if you like it. This is what we do, and you got to get that through your head. And what a dum-dum I would have to be to think that my opinion of that matter was even one. But you know these times of your life where you don't have it all figured out, but you think you do? And he's explaining to me, if you want to go on, if you want to be competitive and go to college, I remember telling him, I have a scholarship. My GPA is not scholarship. And he was breaking down the numbers for me and telling me 0.1% of people get scholarships, just so you know. Odds aren't in your favor. I just remember being so confident. But imagine that. Imagine what I just said. I wasn't trying to punch my own ticket there. I was trying to share with you that what if you did have the mindset of like Khabib? This is just what you do. You come up, you identify your sport. Around 11, 12 years old, you focus everything into that sport. You represent the country. You win the world championship. It's just an interesting thing. And there is something about staying with those same people in that same environment and everybody staying equal that would keep you playfully humble. And when I talked with Islam, it was one of the things that I could not get around. And I asked him point blank. I told you guys yesterday that I would do this and I would get back to you. Here's the payoff. Every upset involves the guy being upset, being in a match that he didn't know was going to be as difficult as it is. Simple as that. And when you follow Islam, he was pretty clear to say he was expecting the winner of Charles Sakarian. He was pretty clear to build up Justin Gaethje, who was a 2-1 favorite over Max, and put him over. Dustin came in out of nowhere. Hey, Islam, are you aware of what a badass you're about to face? And the answer was absolutely yes. As a matter of fact, and this should be very reassuring. This is good news if you're Team Islam. He said he held Dustin to such a standard that it's why he didn't mention his name and didn't call him out. Islam did not know he could ever get to a Poirier. And if that answer, because there's always the lost in translation, right? But if that answer is 80% true, then the outside chance of upset clause really would not apply. Either way, got about 3 weeks to go. These boys are going to fight.